2019 was a very interesting year for me, I must say. And I honestly, I didn't see it going the way it did. I really, truly didn't. Back then, I was, very slowly growing my YouTube channel. There were things going on in real life that were starting to take a dramatic shift. And honestly, I had not gotten into 14 as heavily as I am now, for sure. I had only, done A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word, but even then, despite how many people feel about, especially Heaven's Word, I was not hooked in. For some reason, Heaven's Word. Don't get me wrong. A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word was really good. It was really good and was a very different experience from what I was used to with World of Warcraft and whatnot. But they didn't hook me in like so many other people, like it had done for them, And then I had done a reaction video to Battle for Azeroth, and to this day, it is still my highest viewed video. And who knows when I'm going to top that bad boy. And I'm very, it was such a positive thing, and that I had done that reaction video in 2018, late 2018 BlizzCon, around that time. And I was so heavily ingrained in World of Warcraft and Blizzard games and Diablo and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I still love them to this day, but, as time has gone by, there's a lot of stuff that has happened that has shed a lot of light on things and whatnot. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not a we're bashing WoW Blizzard video. This is not. This video is titled "What Shadowbringers Meant to Me," and I did say that 2019 was a very interesting year for me because it absolutely was. I had remembered that my friend Khan and my basically my brother from another mother, the guy that inspired me to even begin and pushed me to even begin this journey on YouTube and Twitch and everything else. He was the one that told me, man, go for it, And so I did back in 2015. And he kept asking me, bro, you really need to give 14 another shot. And he had told me this for probably the better part of a year. And I kept saying, man, I don't know. I'm so behind. I don't know if I'll, if it'll latch on to me. And plus, man, I haven't really been ingrained in a Final Fantasy game for a very, very long time. Don't get me wrong, I had grown up with Final Fantasy IV and 6 and Tactics, and 7, 8, 9, and 10 being some of my particular favorites. But as far as like a mainstream Final Fantasy game, I had been out of that fandom and that scene for a very, very long time. And so when he finally showed me the trailer for, I want to say it was the patch for the Rising Sun or something like that for Stormblood. Either way, at the very end, they showed Kefka, who, as 14 players of yore now know, Kefka was a raid boss in the Omega raids from Stormblood. And when he showed me that, because Khan knew that Final Fantasy VI was not only one of his favorites, but one of my absolute favorites as well. To this day, it is still, like, in my top 3 favorite Final Fantasy games of all time. And he showed me that, and when I saw Kefka pop up at the end, I was immediately hooked, like, wait a minute, hold up. They're including stuff from previous Final Fantasies into this? And so that was what got me to come back to 14 and give it a proper shot. So I got into Stormblood, and thankfully I had finished A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word by this point, so I could just jump into Stormblood. Of course, by this time it was early summer of 2019, so Stormblood was already near its end, and Shadowbringers was on the way. Not that we at the time we didn't know that yet. So I came back in and I started doing the MSQ and getting used to everything again, and I was having a hard time doing it because I had gone through A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word as ninja, and so I was like, man, this feels very clunky for me coming back into it. So I swapped over to leveling a Lancer and going Dragoon. And so I went through Stormblood as a Dragoon, and I really grew to love it, although I was still absolutely terrible at the game. Not to toot my own horn, but compared to where I am now and where I was absolutely terrible at the game. I was so bad. I couldn't do the rotations properly. But at the same time, at the same time, I didn't really care, because I said, no, I want to give this a proper shot because I want to see, the hook for me was I want to see why Kefka is in this game. And so, I played through Stormblood, went through it as a Dragoon, and thankfully, Khan was there to also give me a helping hand as well. But what I didn't expect to happen was when the Shadowbringer trailer dropped. And when the Shadowbringers trailer dropped, and I took a look at it, and it immediately hooked me in with its presentation, with its music, with its ambience, with the dialogue and everything that was going on in that trailer. I had no clue to any of the semblance of what was going on in this trailer. Like, I had no clue whatsoever. And I know the 14 fans that have been there longer probably had a better idea. I had forgotten characters' names. I had forgotten what the story was. So I had a lot of catching up to do. But I will say, it was the Shadowbringers trailer that made me go, okay, I'm in. Like, the hype was real with that trailer. It hooked me, and I said, okay, I'm in. I'm in. Let's go. I can't wait for this expansion, especially when I saw them, showing off the Dark Knight at the end and that very, Dark Knight Cecil-like, logo for the expansion and everything. It absolutely just hit all the right chords with me. And I said, this is how you freaking hype up not just a video game, but also an expansion of a video game. This is how you hype it up, man. And the hype, as all of you that went through Shadowbringers and before that, the hype was indeed very real. The marketing for this game was like something I had not seen in years. It was viral. It was going everywhere. It was on billboards and buses and sides of buildings and stuff. I mean, the hype was like, I hadn't seen hype like this since the days of like Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis type of marketing. They really went all out with the marketing and showing off, yeah, this is going to be something you're going to want to keep your eyes on, It really gave me that impression. And the funny thing was, it absolutely delivered. So, and the thing that really hooked me with the Shadowbringers trailer was, of course, I'm a massive fan of Final Fantasy VIII. And when I saw Thancred, I've forgotten his name at that point, but when I saw Thancred showing off that gunblade, I went, wait a minute, are they getting the freaking gunblade from Final Fantasy VIII into this game? And that was like the nail in the coffin for me. And I was like, okay, no, I've got to play Shadowbringers now. I loved Final Fantasy VIII. I loved Squall. I loved the concept of a gunblade, as ridiculous as some people may, feel it is. I didn't care. I had to play that job. I had to. Like, nothing was going to stop me from playing that job. So I got in and I pre-purchased Shadowbringers. The day it went on pre-order, I said, nope, I'm pre-ordering this. And I did. I pre-ordered it, and I waited for the day that I could finally, in early access, when I could finally play Gunbreaker. And the funny thing along the way that happened, leading up to the early access of Shadowbringers, was the fact that what I did not expect was something that I was so unfamiliar with, and that was just how welcoming the Final Fantasy XIV community is. I know everybody now, especially this year, they hear all these stories about, people that were playing, previous MMOs or World of Warcraft and coming into this game and just being shocked to discover at how welcoming and warm and open that the Final Fantasy XIV player-based community is. And it's absolutely true, because that was my experience. In fact, you could go back and look at my initial reaction to the Shadowbringers trailer and just look through the comment section, And it is just the most positive-filled thing that I had ever befallen at that time. I mean, I was so used to and I hate to say it, but I was so used to the negative atmosphere of World of Warcraft, because it kind of does have that air about it, you know? And a lot of that comes down to the design of the game itself, with it being a faction war type thing, you know, the competitive scene between looting and raiding and stuff like that. So there's already this air of animosity already put into the game in World of Warcraft, to beset the player base anyway. And 14 wasn't like that. Even now in 2021, after being, you know, armpit deep in this game for 2 years now, it's still not like that. You know, the animosity just, it isn't there. I'm not saying there aren't any turds in this community, because Lord knows every community has its turds, but it is, compared to what I was so used to, it's just not there for me. And it's been very, very minimalistic compared to what I was just so used to encountering. And so as I'm finishing up Stormblood, and as I'm heading into early access, what I also did not expect was to make a new batch of friends that are still friends to this day. People like I initially started playing with, like Batu, and of course Khan was playing alongside me, and Roxy, and then, you know, meeting people that would eventually become my guild, my free company, and join it, my Merry Malcontents guild, for free company. I go back and forth between calling it that, but you know what I mean. You know, people that I met over the span of 2 years. And the funny thing is, it's been 2 years, and the majority of the people are still there in this FC of mine. I've never had a guild or an FC or a group of people stick around this long within a video game. Not in WoW. The longest I'd ever had a guild that I ran last in World of Warcraft was about a year, and it was a guild me and Khan ran from halfway through Mist of Pandaria, through Warlords of Draenor, when the massive exodus really started to hit the game. And so here we are 2 years later. My FC is still standing, and not only standing, but thriving. And there's been new people come in. Some faces have left. But we're thriving, we're growing, and it really has become an inner circle for me. You know, these are some very, very, not just great people to play a video game with, but these are very good friends of mine. You know, people that we confide in each other, we support each other. You know, we have each other's backs. And I even in World of Warcraft, with the exception of 2 people, and that's Pinksy and Khan, I had never experienced that in the context of a video game or in the universe of a video game. I just never experienced that, and I certainly did not think it was going to last this long. And the thing is, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. Like, we're only going to go from here. And that was one thing I just did not expect that to happen, and it only grew from there during the course of Shadowbringers and us experiencing this game together. And it grew even further in earlier this year, when my FC and I started actually doing serious raiding. And my first taste of that was all the way back in Titania EX. And it was me and Batu and Roxy, and we did that. We strategized that thing strictly over text. I don't know how we did it. It took a couple of tries, but eventually me and Batu, who were co-tanking that thing, and Roxy being a dancer, eventually we downed that boss. And it was my first taste of, in a long time, of downing hard content, and it felt great. And then I didn't really get back into it just yet with Shadowbringers, because I was doing other stuff with it within the game and enjoying it in other regards. You know, the normal Eden raids and stuff like that. But then I finally decided, you know, at the beginning of 2021, I said, you know what, I want to really seriously raid in this game. And there were people in my FC that felt the same, you know. And I really have to thank Kadar, my co-officer, my co-raid officer, who really helped me get this thing together with my FC, for having, having the, not only the patience to put up with it, but giving me the motivation to do it. And so we formed, a group, and we knew it was not going to be easy. We knew it was not going to be easy because this was also, for the vast majority of them, this was a group of people, like I said, the majority of them that never really delved into the hardcore content. Not just when it comes to an MMORPG, but especially when it came to this game. And so we started off, and the first thing we went for, we tried Ruby Weapon EX, and we got so frustrated and we backed off. And then we really said, no, we are doing Emerald Weapon EX. I said, Emerald Weapon, it gives me really great memories of Final Fantasy VII. And I said, no, we're doing this. Like, we're doing this. We are doing Emerald Weapon EX. And so I got a group back together, and we had a lot of trial and error. In fact, we went at it and took a stab at Emerald Weapon EX for I want to say about a month. We went at it for about a month, just slowly picking away at him, bit by bit, little by little, learning things, adapting strategies, putting in our own methods to help the rest of the group, get used to the fight. Because even I was still learning the fight as I was going. And then eventually, we beat him. And then when we beat him 9 more times. And I was like, oh my god. Not only am I enjoying this game from a social aspect and from a PvE aspect, now I get to enjoy it from a hardcore raiding aspect, and it's still fun. And I could just sense, and I could absolutely hear the elation in my Static's voice when we finally downed that boss. And like I said, it was people that had not done content like this before, or had not done content like this in a while, with a few people that had done this content that really wanted to do more of it. And then after we did Emerald EX and everybody got their weapons, Diamond Weapon EX dropped not long after that, and we went in on that one, and within 2 weeks, we downed him next. And then we killed him 4 more times, and everybody got their weapons, and it was amazing. And then the next step we took, while we didn't do the entirety, of the Eden Savage raids, we did step into Eden Savage 9, the Cloud of Darkness boss fight. And that one took a little longer, because as anybody can tell you, Savage content is a lot harder than Extreme content. But when we went in there with the hardest content available to us at that point, we went in there, we took time, we had patience, thank God. We had some people dip in and out here and there, but we reformed the team, we learned the fight, we had to ad-lib a lot of stuff and just make up some strategies on the fly, which is another thing I love about the raiding in this game. But we eventually beat it. And we only beat it once, but like for us, that was enough. That was a sense of victory, and just it really was just one of those great feel-good moments, knowing that yes, we can do this content. Yes, we are capable, and we're going to hit it even harder once Endwalker drops. We're gonna hit it even harder. We're gonna hit it when it's constant, or when it's current, and we're gonna hit it hard, and we're gonna stay on top of it this time, because that was one thing that Shadowbringers also really brought back out of me, was a love for raiding and how fun it is to learn the fights and triumph over them. And that was something I had not felt in World of Warcraft really throughout the entirety of Battle for Azeroth. Like, I didn't feel it. In fact, I did not raid in Battle for Azeroth until near the very end, because I had to go back and try it at least. But it left me so unsatisfied, and Shadowbringers just was the complete opposite. It really, truly was. The biggest thing that I have to say about Shadowbringers is the narrative. It's storytelling like that is very often rarely seen in video games. Very, very rarely do you get narrative this in deep, but not only this in depth, is what I meant to say. In depth. Not only this in depth, but the kind of narrative that just hits you that hard. And it did hit hard. I mean, anybody that can tell you that's been through Shadowbringers, you know, there's a reason it's called the Feels Bringer. There's a reason it's called the Feels Bringer. And like I said, it's just, it's really hard to put to words just how good and how planned out this narrative is, but also it's hard to describe with words just how good it is. And it's amazing at that point that these narrative points for this game, this specific game, it's hard to put to words just how amazing it is that how much of this long-term planning was coming to light. You know, it really is hard to put to words. You know, you've got, you know, the tragedies happening on the first. You have this villain in Emmett Selk. You have, you know, which, you know, turned out to not to say spoilers, but you understand why he's doing what he's doing. You know, you have the encounter with Elidibus in 5.3. You still have the stuff going on with the Garlean Empire and Xenos. You had all of these shocker moments. You had all of these, especially at the very beginning, if you decided to go to Amarang first, and you really got, and you know the scene I'm talking about with Tesleen. That scene that for so many, and you can see their reactions on YouTube, that scene for so many that really showed this welcome to Shadowbringers. You know, this is the expansion of we're not playing around. This is serious. And it shows just not only, you know, the complete opposite of the narrative we were used to with, you know, how dangerous the darkness is, but the light can be no different. You know, it was such an antithesis to what I was used to in any kind of a narrative, you know? Because, I mean, what's always the narrative you see in fantasy games? The dark is bad, the light is good. And then Shadowbringers just flipped that on its head. And it showed you, no, it's not all about these preset elemental things in narratives, and especially in fiction and fantasy that you're so used to. Shadowbringers just flipped it on its head, you know? And it did such character analysis and such growth with characters, especially characters like Alize and Alphanod and Thancred. You know, there's so much great growth there. You know, seeing Y'shtola grow on her own, seeing, you know, Urianger being more of a devious little scamp than he already is. You know, the story with Reen and Gaia and the Eden raids. You know, I mean, it was so good, all of it. Even what I consider probably the part that I didn't like, that I probably liked the least, which was Boja and the war fronts there. I will say that was probably my least favorite part of Shadowbringers, just because of the frustration factor that it had, and that it was a grind. However, it did tie into the relic weapon, and as any Final Fantasy XIV player can tell you, you know, the relic, while it is optional, if you do decide to go down that path, get ready for a journey and a grind and everything else, because it's not going to be easy and it will be time consuming. In fact, I didn't finish this literally until the last day, right before Endwalker drops. So, you know, I had to put in a lot of time, and I really thank my FC for being patient with that. You know, and then you had the Nier raids, the Yorha raids based off of the Nier Automata and Drakengard and Nier Replicant and that entire franchise by Yoko Taro. And it's even funnier now how that now the Nier and Drakengard series are now canon to Final Fantasy XIV because of this. And I'm not going to explain how that is in the video. All I'm going to say is you really ought to, if you haven't done the Nier raids and Shadowbringers, you really ought to do them, because they really are eye openers. You know, they really, really, truly are eye openers. And really, the last thing that I can close on, especially in 2019, when I first started, you know, changing everything with my content and incorporating more Final Fantasy XIV into it, even though I'm a reaction channel, you know, the biggest thing, and I've said this before, but I haven't talked about it, you know, in a good long while. In late 2019, I had to go to the emergency room because I was suffering from a thyroglossal duct cyst that I had struggled with my entire life since I was like age 4. And it had become inflamed again. After 30 years of nothing, it had become inflamed again. And in November of 2019, it had become inflamed so much that I learned that if I had not gone into the ER the day that I had, if I had waited not even a day longer, then the swelling from the cyst in my neck would have closed off my windpipe, and it would have likely ruptured, and it more than likely would have killed me. And I had never had a brush with death that close before. And it really just put so much into perspective of what was important to me. And it didn't just show me that, and it didn't just make me even more grateful for not only being alive, but for being grateful for all of the important things in my life, and like my wife, who just stood by me through thick and thin and still does to this day. But it also showed me not just my community on YouTube and Twitch just being so supportive and caring and reaching out to me, but my FC. And again, this goes back to the friends I made along the way, you know, because, you know, I know the meme, you know, oh, you know, maybe the most important thing was the friends we made along the way. Well, for me, that's what Shadowbringers meant. The thing that touched me the most was the friends I made along the way. Every member of my FC, every member of my guild, and even the extended friends, you know, Batu, Khan, and people that are on other realms that still interact with us. You know, the truth is, what Shadowbringers meant to me was the friends I made along the way. And they're some of the dearest people in my life, and I care so much for them because I know they care for me. And you know that stays true. It stayed true for 2 years, but in that moment, when I saw them, you know, reaching back out to me again while that was going on, when I really thought the end was near, you know, to this day, it still just impacts me so deeply of what this game meant to me and what it brought into my life, just the positive things that it brought into my life. And I'll never forget it. The only thing that makes me sad in all of this is that Shadowbringers is coming to an end. But you know what? It's okay. You know, it's okay, because it's an experience that I'll never ever forget, and it's wonderful blessings into my life that through this game have happened. It really changed everything for me, and it brought along changes that still impact me to this day, all for the better. And it's made me grow through leading this FC. It really has grown my confidence, not only as a content creator, but, you know, being a leader. And I know that might seem silly. Oh, you're a leader of a guild. It's not that big of a deal. But the thing is, it is for me, especially someone who's gone through a life that's, of course, we all have our ups and downs, but in my life, there have been some very heavy downs, you know, to the point that I did want to just walk away and end it all. And while I'm leaps and bounds way away from all of that now, experiencing this narrative, experiencing this game, and meeting the friends that I have made along the way that are still walking this path with me to this day, it really just brought in so much perspective on everything, and with my experience of what nearly happened to me at the end of 2019, especially going into 2020 with the pandemic, it really showed me to count my blessings and be grateful and to just be thankful for the good things that have happened in my life and the good things that are here. Because it's true, nothing lasts forever. But I'll be damned if I don't appreciate it now, and if I don't remind people like my wife, and people like Khan, and people like Pinksy, and people like my FC. Not only do you matter, but there's a reason you're my inner circle. And you mean the world to me. And because Shadowbringers happened, and because I went into Shadowbringers, and because I joined the Final Fantasy XIV community, and because they were so welcoming and open and warm and loving, really, from my YouTube and from my Twitch standard, all I have to say is I will never ever forget what Shadowbringers meant to me. I'll never forget it. And I can't wait to see what Endwalker brings. And I want to close this by thanking my FC, my wife, Khan, Pinksy, my dear friends of the extended FC, Yoshi P, Soken, everybody on the Final Fantasy XIV developmental team, Square Enix, my YouTube community, my Twitch community. Just thank you for not only bringing this into my life, but for all the positivity you do bring, and for all of the blessings in my life that have happened over the last 2.5 years. It really has changed a lot for me, and I'll never, ever forget it.